Greg, thank you very much for joining me.
Yes, no worries, buddy. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, mate. Getting by, missing teaching and stuff, but it is what it is. What about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, buddy. I'm still teaching a little bit with some of the guys, so it's not that bad, But I'd rather get everyone training, But it's circumstances won't allow us, But it is what it is, like you
What
said.
are you on like elite status and stuff at the moment? Are you?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of hassle trying to get it all passed by the local council, but they granted us elite training for some of the guys and support staff to be able to train. So guys like Mason and the guys then who are pro, who are looking to go pro, we've got them in training. So we've only got a handful of guys in, but it's better than nothing, It keeps me busy. That's the main thing.
Yeah, exactly, mate. What are you? What's your general schedule as in training wise? Are you full time at the gym or?
I still work a full-time job, but then I do the gym every day as well.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like it's like a 50-50 split, I'm in the gym just as much as I'm in my job, to be honest. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. I enjoy being busy though. That's my thing. I hate hanging around and doing nothing. So I think having a job is good, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes in the future. It's looking good.
Yeah, it's one of them. I just wish there was some. I just wish there was some logic now. I just wish there was some sort of logic and somebody could just shake someone and be like, "Look, how are you not recognizing how important this shit is? Like we got
I know.
people sat at home getting fat and going mentally insane. How are you not really? I mean, I'm even running. Like next, I'll have a gi on. What's going
That's
on?
next level. That's next level running. I
Yeah,
haven't quite got there yet.
mate.
And
Honestly,
then again, I have been running with my son because my son plays football, and we do a couple of runs, but it's only like 3Ks because he's turning 11 now in 2 weeks.
yeah.
He does like 3Ks. He doesn't need to do more than that, so that's enough for me as well. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah, mate, 3K is enough for me.
It's enough.
Unless I'm being chased, 3K is generally where it gets cut off for me.
Exactly.
But I have to do
Even
something.
getting chased, I think I'll give up.
Yeah, mate. I just have to do something. Like I shadow box in my front room or something, and I'm moving around just to do something. But you don't.
Yeah.
I think because obviously a lot of my training in the more recent years, in the last sort of year or so, with NAD not really being that active because of the lockdown and stuff, and then none of our guys are on that level, so they haven't been fighting. Most of my
Yeah.
training's literally been teaching. So when the teaching's not there, you really notice like shit. I'm not really getting any rolling in. I'm not getting anything done.
Yeah, it's sad because like it's the participation part I find hard because obviously like guys are gonna lose a little bit of wanting to come back. I've had messages off like the majority of guys who are dying to get back, but it's kind of getting new guys into training as well. You miss that kind of like January, February is like everyone's most important time of the year where you can kind of get new starters through the gym.
Yeah.
But we've missed that, and then last year we kind of got going with new starters, and then in March everything locked down, so those guys never really got going. So really, with a year now where you're not getting new students through the door. We had a little period, I think it was October, November time, where we could get guys back in, but it's still not enough. So, but it's a kind of participation part for me, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
getting new guys into jiu-jitsu and MMA.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, those first 6 months to a year are crucial, aren't they? Like if you can get a brand new student, if you can get them to just attend a grading, even if they don't grade, if you can just get them to attend a grading, let's say, or get them to attend a big squad session and they can see what it's about. And, because coming to sessions is good and you learn, but then when you get a big group organized thing
Yeah.
like that and you see what it's about, people generally overlook just how much of a community it is within jiu-jitsu or MMA. So when you get them for 6 months or a year and it becomes habitual to keep coming back, then they can turn up to training and people are like, oh, hello Pete, and 6 weeks ago I didn't even
Yeah.
know your name. That people underestimate just how big a difference that makes.
Definitely with the Pedro Bessa boys now as well. We're kind of close in proximity as well between South Wales and Southeast, you know what I mean? So it's kind of easy to get around. Within an hour, you can probably get to like almost all of the Pedro Bessa academies in South
Yeah.
Wales and Bristol area. So we get together quite regular as well, like you said. So it is kind of that we miss that part of it of being able to go around and train with other guys and you know, it is, like you said, it is what it is. We just got to try and get through it, you know.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, as a team and as competitors, we're gonna be all right. Everything's gonna be all right. It's just gym owners. That's the thing, and it's like people.
Yeah.
If you own a gym and if you got somewhere, I know places that are going tits up at the moment, and it's just about holding on. And if you can get through it, and then hopefully it'll all be over, and in a year's time we're gonna be looking back saying, "What the fuck was that?"
Is it the other part of it as well? Is that you've got young guys now, like, maybe like we've got a couple of guys who are like in between college and uni, and once they get their degrees or qualifications, and they're thinking about, you know, they've got something to fall back on and pursuing full-time training. Now,
Yeah.
this is going to scare them, you know. How are they going to be able to kind of survive off privates and stuff when immediately that's taken away? So that safety net of getting like a full-time athlete in where they can just course through their training and just concentrate on that, and then obviously, you know, earn money from privates and stuff, that safety net's just been completely taken away from them, you know. So that's a problem as well, to be honest with you, having guys kind of have faith in going full-time going forward in the future, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a situation as well now where over the last couple of years, like even jiu-jitsu is becoming a viable career. And, you know, you got the guys who are MMA. People have been pro MMA for a while and they've dedicated themselves. And for a lot of my career, when I owned my gym and stuff, my money came from personal training or I did some door work. But even jiu-jitsu guys now are getting to a point where you can earn a career. You can make a career out of jiu-jitsu. So you can go full-time with your jiu-jitsu and just live off of that. So we need that influx. We need people coming through and thinking, yeah, this is still viable to stop the progression that just jiu-jitsu is making.
Yeah, I think when this is all over, I think we'll take like a couple of steps back before we get obviously take a couple of steps forward. So, like I said, I think it's just for the younger generation as well, the new starters looking at it and saying, right, I want to make a career out of this. Whereas, you know, 18 months ago, everyone would have been encouraged by the way that jiu-jitsu, MMA and everything was going. It was a complete like progression. You could see where everything was going. Now is like, ah, shit, everything's been taken away from us like at a drop of the hat, you know. Do I really want to be the guy that doesn't make it just because of the circumstances, not because it wasn't good enough, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the issue you got.
Yeah. So how did you come to it, mate? You're one of Ped's earliest black belts, right?
First, yeah.
Yeah. So the first, yeah.
The
So
first,
how did you come to BJJ, and how did you what were you doing before that? What led to it really for you?
yeah. I was playing rugby. My brother was a really good rugby player, and I kind of followed in his footsteps. My brother played for Wales under 18s, under 21s, and made his path that way. And I kind of followed in the same footsteps. So I played rugby all my life, and then I kind of got to where I was like 18, 19, where like I didn't enjoy. I just didn't enjoy the team aspect of rugby, if you know what I mean. It's weird. It's like some days you turn up and you're really up for the game, and then if 2 or 3 boys doesn't turn up, and I was one of those boys a couple of games, you know what I mean? If they didn't turn up, you had no chance of winning, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of those frustrations where no matter how hard you work, if the unit didn't work, then you're kind of done. So I didn't enjoy that. So I wanted to try something more like individual. So I was thinking about like boxing or something down that line, you know? And then one of my good friends, Adrian Watkins, was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, and I just hooked up with him and just went from there. They was literally within 24 hours, I was like almost training full time. It was just one of those things. Because I was already playing rugby, I was already genuinely fit, and I enjoyed kind of physical contact from the rugby. I kind of just went, right, okay, I'll just flip everything on his head, and I'll just, instead of doing rugby 5-6 days a week, because I was playing like pretty decent level, then I'll just go and do jiu-jitsu 5-6 days a week. And that's basically how it went, and just went from there, just snowballed. Then when you start to enjoy something, it just snowballs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's I mean, rugby I think is a good foundation, just because like if you come from football or tennis, or you can be an athlete, but having that body on body impact because you know, in rugby, even when you're not generally supposed to get hurt, but if you accidentally tackle someone and take a heel to the lip, or you get raked, or something happens in the scrum and you get those accidental hurts, that happens in jiu-jitsu all the time, and that's a big thing that puts people off. Yeah,
Is that conditioning factor in it really? That there's a conditioning factor of it. Like it's jiu-jitsu. I always say not everyone means to elbow you in the face. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
rugby is, like you said, exact same thing. And like going back to kind of getting new guys in, I encourage like rugby players to come and after they come back from the original lockdown and we was allowed to train again, I was having an influx of rugby players simply because they couldn't play rugby. And man, some of the guys was like, I'm really excited when they get back because they're already athletically gifted. They love contact. They're hardworking. They hate losing, and it's just the perfect mix for someone who wants to do MMA or jiu-jitsu. It's the
yeah,
perfect mix.
exactly.
So I'm really excited for those guys to maybe come back, hopefully after this lockdown ends.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've worked with some rugby guys before, particularly in the wrestling area. They assume that being able to wrestle is going to help them with their tackling and stuff, which it will
Yeah.
certainly not hinder. But when you get them and you get them on the mat, I mean, at first they're useless because they think it's just power and they rely on their power. But then when you show them, just like you show them a couple of little things and they utilize their athleticism with it as well, you're like, Jesus, this is, you can be trouble here.
I've worked with a couple of rugby guys, like rugby teams around here in South Wales, and a couple of them have come like with off season or pre-season and whatever. They've come to jiu-jitsu and just kind of supplemented their training a little bit, But they, like you said, they are athletic. They're quite gifted, a lot of them, And then you got the ones who just like to drink beer. So,
yeah, they generally don't make the transition over so much.
Nah, not so well.
What really shocks me with jiu-jitsu is, I mean, obviously I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 18, 19 years or something stupid like that. What really shocks me is back in the day, this wasn't really a thing, and it is now, is there's proper jiu-jitsu geeks. It attracts people who are really cerebral and thinking people. You get the people who are, like people who are maulers, who are strong, who are like, but generally it attracts a person who's a thinker. That element of it being a bit chess-like is a true story. It is very much like that. It is a thinking game in the cerebral aspect, and I really like that you're in a room with people who generally would be non-confrontational, non-violent, non-aggressive, but as soon as you put them in a jiu-jitsu environment, they're now taking all these cognitive abilities and all the functional aspects, putting that together then with the fact of, and you actually you nurture that aggressive side of them.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that they are like a bit of a geek, for want of a better word.
A good mix of brawn and brains is the ideal mix in there, A good mix, a bit of brawn and a bit of brains. That's probably the best thing that you can describe it. But I've got my jiu-jitsu team are quite laid back. They're thinkers. They're not so aggressive. I've got one or two who are obviously like rugby boys, quite aggressive guys, and we encourage that to a certain degree as well because that's their MO. You know what I mean? But the majority, I'd say 80% of the guys that train out of my academy are kind of real quiet thinkers, really good at what they do. They try to really break it down. They enjoy watching jiu-jitsu. They enjoy talking about it. They enjoy drilling. So that's the kind of guys that is good to encourage, because a lot of guys who come into jiu-jitsu probably wouldn't excel at a lot of other things, athletically, because you can get such a mix of guys in jiu-jitsu. But not just that, I think it's the games in jiu-jitsu you can play. You can play a wrestling game or a guard game, and it kind of suits everyone. Everyone starts to get their own little game, and then they kind of go down that line of like some guys just play half guard, some play open guard, some play close guard, some play top game, passing game. And I think that's what attracts people to jiu-jitsu because of the different elements of it, and then trying to beat the certain guy that you're training against with that one element that you're really good at. So I think that's what interests people about jiu-jitsu so much, and people who, like I said, are not so athletic.
Yeah. The puzzle, it is that the puzzle element. I think that it wouldn't be a shock to see a lot of these guys doing a Rubik's Cube whilst they're doing jiu-jitsu because it is the puzzle element. I mean, what I when I first started, it was because of MMA, obviously, and jiu-jitsu wasn't massive here, and I spent a few months in Brazil, and it was for me, it was just about getting on top and being on top and keeping control, and then I remember I trained with Marcelo Garcia came by a club that I was training at for like he did 2 days there, and he showed some butterfly guard stuff, and I'd never seen butterfly guard at this point, and I just loved the fact that it was so, compared to everything else, it was so easy and mellow, and wait for your guy to do this and flow with this. And then I started thinking like, man, I'm just gonna play off my back. I'm gonna go the one place I don't want to be. I'm just going to play off my back because I don't want to be there so much. And I started doing that and playing off my back and watching things to do with back because I thought
we had interesting conversation today in training, just after training, guys who are like they enjoy wrestling, you know, and that's their thing. But I said, what happens then, like when you get put on your back? Because there'll become a time where, like, especially in the amateur ranks or low pro ranks, where you'll meet, like, we're not talking like UFC level, you know, but in the ranks and kind of early on in your pro, you will get put on your back. So let's kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable. So we had a conversation about that today, and like being put on your back and kind of getting good at the positions that you don't enjoy, because then when you get there, you kind of get comfortable with it over time, you know. But I think a lot of people stay away from positions they don't enjoy, but it's good to kind of get comfortable being uncomfortable in positions that you don't enjoy. I think that's a good thing about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's it. Just like you get the people who, and you see it with everyone when they first start, they want to, because I don't necessarily teach submissions very early on. When I teach your first couple of classes, you're probably just going to learn a mount escape, a half guard sweep, because a submission is generally the end of the roll, let's say, because if it's so I don't teach them very early on. I teach, if someone's got you in a shit position, I don't want you to tap because that's the end of the roll. I want you to know how to get out of it. So I teach escapes and stuff so that if you do get put on your back, you're out of those positions, but the roll's still going. Otherwise, you spend 5 minutes tapping 6 or 7 times. Now you can spend 5 minutes. You might not know how to sub anyone, but you know how to go from one to the next, to the move, to be on my back, to get back to sweeping, which I think is like really important, is the fact of being able to keep the flow going, especially in an MMA situation where
and it, like, if you like, I talked to one of the guys who are training with us at the moment, Ollie Cole, who's a Commonwealth wrestler. He's doing some teaching at the gym with us, and like all of last week he spent on his back, you know, just working. He come to me and said, I spent a lot of time on my back this week in the grappling classes, just to get used to being on his back, you know, because you never know, you may lose a scramble here there, and you got to be on your back, you know. So stuff like that's like super important, especially for like MMA. It's super important for MMA.
Yeah, you can. We had a fighter. I had a phone call to match one of my guys. Oh, we want to match so and so to go pro. I won't say his name. Want to match so and so to go pro. I was like, no, he's not going pro. And they're like, no, come on, he's won his last 3 or 4 amateur fights and stuff. He's 5-1 at amateur, or whatever. It's a really easy pro fight. I'm like, nah. They're like, no, I think he's ready. I'm like, listen, I've never seen him on his back getting punched in the face and have to get up because he's fighting an amateur. So until I see him in an amateur fight on his back in trouble, and I know he can stay composed, listen to what the corner has to say, and come to his feet, he's not ready to go pro. Like, I want to see him.
It's crazy how a promoter is saying that I want your guy to go pro, and undermining everything that the coach says. I think he's ready. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's ready. Like, brilliant, perfect. It is crazy, mate. That element of MMA and UK MMA is still very much there.
That's why I kind of like not like. Obviously, obviously I got guys who are fine, but I kind of keep away from it at the same time, because you can get dragged in. Especially UK. So I just kind of just breeze through it as much as I can.
Yeah.
Just concentrate on the boys, concentrate on getting them, and that's it.
Yeah, being a coach is much better than being a manager, definitely.
All day.
This is the thing. When you're a coach, you've only got the one asshole to deal with. When you're a manager, you've got all of them. So
everyone.
Yeah. Well, so you started. That was you starting then, mate. What was your journey? How long did it take you to go from starting to getting your black belt?
I started, I think it was 2004, and I got my black belt in 2012.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got my black belt in 2012. Won a first one with Kevin Cox and Mark Tucker. So yeah, literally just training and competing as much as I could, really. As much competitions now is crazy, you know what I mean? The amount you can compete every weekend if you want, whereas maybe back in the day we had like 4 or 5 that we could kind of concentrate on throughout the year. So like, you know, and if you was injured at one, like for one half of the year, then you only had 1 or 2 comps to kind of aim for, you know. So early on it was difficult to get competition, but yeah, competed as much as we could. Yeah, just concentrating a lot more now on the coaching aspect of it, if I'm honest with you. Just spending a lot more time and maybe, like I said, try and make a career for themselves, because where we live is not great, you know. It's not, you either like, at the moment it's not a lot going on, especially with lockdown, but even when the lockdown's not, you're not a lot. You play football, rugby, you go out on the weekends, that's your lot, like. So it's trying to offer something different and another path for guys, like I said, who are not really into that side of sports, you know.
Yeah. It's I think I think you probably, the guys who are, I mean, obviously Bristol's a massive place, so I think it's easy to underestimate how different and difficult it is for other people all over the country, because
I'm massively jealous of that. Yeah, I'm massively jealous because you get an influx of like different people.
Yeah,
Constantly all the time. I'm not saying that we are undermining by any standards, because we've got a lot of guys who are doing really well. You've got a lot of foot traffic coming through, as we have just working with what we got. So this, sometimes when someone makes it, is much the Welsh guy made the impact on like the local community and everyone from the local community is because of that young guys, you know, we've just working with.
Yeah.
You're there. I thought
you broke up there, mate. You got me?
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, you're the videos froze, but you broke up a little bit audio wise as well. So
It may be my internet. One sec. Yeah. Be all right.
I got you, mate. I can still hear you. Yeah, I can still hear you. I just can't see you, mate. So
Okay.
but as long as the audio's there, mate, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got me?
Yeah, I got you, mate.
Are you going to be my first one where it cuts out on us?
Not. That's that Welsh internet, see?
I tell you what, mate, it's like the fighters though, because it's resilient. It hasn't give up yet.
It's not giving up. It's not giving up. The problem is with me, the internet's not great, and then I've got my kids stuck in the house on their Xbox and iPads and stuff like that. So, you know, hopefully it's all right now.
Yeah, you were sound up until then, mate. It was perfect until then, and you seem to be good again now. So we're all set. But so yeah, I mean that's good even by today's standards. 8 years getting to go from starting training to get your black belt. I mean, it shouldn't be underestimated, your commitment. That definitely shouldn't be underestimated, your commitment. And then the fact that you were probably going to tournaments as well and competitions. And I bet the pool of competition was small. I bet there weren't many people in your category like you go now. You could easily have 20 people in your category now every weekend.
Yeah, maximum, especially heavy or super heavy in a blue belt. So you get like 3 or 4 guys in your category. But now, like I said, if I go to the Euros, a black belt, master 1, heavy or super heavy, you get like 10, 12 guys, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why like the Euros are so good, because then you'll get a good number of fights. Whereas the UK, maybe not so many guys that like heavy or super heavy, you know, to fight with. So international competition is probably more important when you get to like brown and black belt.
Yeah. You also you're doing a lot of work with Polaris as well. I mean, have they still got stuff coming up with even through the lockdown, or has that stopped? Because they did a bit during the last lockdown, didn't they?
Yeah, so I think since this has been going on, obviously the COVID, I've done 2 shows with Polaris, refereeing 2 shows, and they done it down in Bournemouth. So yeah, I think they got another one coming up. I'm not kind of sure when, but I've been kind of asked, am I free? But a date's not definite, I don't think. But yeah, they definitely carry on doing them. I think what they got in place is like obviously the same as what they do with Cage Warriors. They got like the isolation and COVID testing and stuff like that. How that works now with all this new international travel restrictions, I don't know. But with obviously elite athletes, like with us flying back from Fight Island, we was kind of exempt as long as we was tested. I think it was like 48 hours before leaving.
Yeah.
And we had a negative result. We was fine. So yeah, I'm sure they'll be able to mitigate it somehow. As long as they got like the isolation thing in place and testing. I think elite athletes are kind of fine to carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this sort of situation's good for something like Polaris. I think because a lot of other events aren't there. It just in the that's an event that in the UK really needs the backing, needs the support of everyone who's involved in combat sports, because it's such a huge event for people. Like for someone like myself, I'd love to compete on it because I'm at the end of my MMA career, but it's like the format is superb. It's the closest to fighting in jiu-jitsu I can get in no-gi. Otherwise, you're going to competitions, which, it's a lot of rolling. To go and have a super fight or to have just a 10-minute, like, a submission-only event like that, where you're not just stuck in a sports hall with nobody paying any attention. For something like that, for someone like me, it makes me want to train properly for it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great experience as well, because like obviously a lot of the UK guys are getting a good showing on Polaris as well, and I think a lot of the guys have been invited over then to like big shows overseas, like in America and stuff like that, going over and fighting on the other shows. So it's kind of highlighted a lot of the UK guys. And not only that, now the European guys as well. Some of the European guys are savages. And you look at MMA as well. Some of the European guys in MMA now is crazy, So we're not a million miles away, but shows like Polaris, obviously, Cage Warriors and things like that are in the UK is putting a good show on for like a lot of the local guys to kind of showcase themselves, especially being on Fight Pass as well,
Yeah, that's a big deal for both of them. But with Polaris on the Fight Pass thing, it's for me, it's just brought, because I don't watch a lot of jiu-jitsu. It's not really my thing, and if I do watch jiu-jitsu, it's generally no gi stuff. So to have the format where it is more like a fight card and I mean, this isn't it's not a new thing. It's been around for a while, but for someone from the UK to have started something like Polaris and invested so heavily with time, commitment, and to be delivering that, and then obviously like they got the world's best referees as well, obviously. So
standard.
But yeah, I love it. I really love it. I enjoy watching it. I like it. I can easily sit down and watch a whole Polaris card, the same as I would watch any MMA.
And they're evolving as well, because then obviously with the lockdown going on, they could match guys up, but then they come up with a teams format as well, So they done the teams format, which was I really enjoyed refereeing. It was kind of quick, It was really, really good. It was kind of, you didn't know who was coming out next fight. You didn't know who was fighting who, and you know what I mean. And I know that a lot of people were slating like the UK versus the European guys, but the UK put up out of a scrap, considering that we was in kind of a pandemic as well, when the guys couldn't train full time, they didn't have access to training, and they put up out of a scrap as well. So, they done themselves proud, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. The teams, I think that's it to stay as well. I think
the format's brilliant because it makes people attack, and the worst thing for jiu-jitsu is obviously stalling. Well, if you're in a competition where stalling earns you nothing, then it forces you to attack.
And you don't want to lay your team down either, do you? You want to get the points for your team. You want to get ahead, and it's tactics that come into play as well, where like they kind of playing one guy against another guy who suits them, and it's really interesting. It's good. It gives it that little bit of a different feel,
Yeah, Yeah, definitely. So would you say, do you follow jiu-jitsu in the same way that you follow, say, MMA?
Yeah, yeah, kind
Yeah.
of, yeah. Yeah, loosely, if I'm honest with you, because like you said, once you've been doing something for so long, you kind of pick what you enjoy watching.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I couldn't sit there like early on, I'd sit there and watch the Worlds from 10 in the morning all the way through till the evening without a shadow of not a problem. But now I think I'd struggle.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of pick what I tend to do is pick fights I enjoy. I'm watching a lot of wrestling at the moment and really in because it's something that I haven't watched before or something I'm got involved with. So I'm watching a lot of Division 1 and 2 wrestling, just anyone, all fights anyone doesn't bother me. I'll just watch whatever comes to mind and I'll just have a look and then see who's who and whatever and kind of get a grasp of that and see because it's a different aspect, you know what I mean, of something and it's something different to watch as well. So I'm
Yeah.
enjoying watching that.
Yeah, I mean that uh, I'm a big advocate of wrestling. It's my favorite aspect of the sport. I've been wrestling for as long as I've been doing jiu-jitsu. So I love wrestling. I loved wrestling. I was in 2006. I was in the US training with good wrestlers, and in Bristol we've always had a good wrestling base with like Saeed and John
Yeah,
and them
you've
guys.
always had a good kind of that's the good thing about training down in Bristol is not always jiu-jitsu, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
when you go to Bristol you don't just train jiu-jitsu, so it's not like training here, but in Bristol is a different vibe, a different type of rolling, which
yeah,
I
yeah.
enjoy, which is good. You've always had good wrestlers in Bristol. This is why I enjoy going, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's good. I really I've liked freestyle wrestling for a long time, but that's still I've been critical about how we don't have it like at an early age, and then I was brought into to teaching wrestling to Ped's kids team and stuff, and because I really think I think that's a sport that can do really well over here in schools for
Yeah.
the simple fact there's no like it does in America because there's no submissions in school.
Mm.
Schools will be put off with jiu-jitsu over here, and they have been when they've been approached, but wrestling I think can be really big, especially if more people can get into watching it. But
Mm.
like you said, MMA probably in jiu-jitsu is what brought you to wrestling.
Mm.
So I see that that's the next progression is wrestling to
Yeah, and
get
that's
over here.
that's what we kind of done at the academy now is we was looking for a while for like a more of a full-time wrestling coach in the academy because that was the only thing missing,
Yeah.
where like I was doing the wrestling but I wasn't a wrestler, which like
Mhm.
I've always had the same attitude as like don't come to me for your boxing because I'm not a boxer or a boxing coach. We need someone in here who's going to be good at their job. If someone asks me about striking advice, I give my opinion, and
Yeah.
then I point them over to Stephen and say, Giff was our Thai boxing coach, and I say, look, you need to go and ask Stephen because he's well more versed than me, he knows exactly what's going on. Go and ask his opinion. So
Yeah.
that was the one thing that was missing was the wrestling with us, and we've got Ollie Cole who's coming now, who's a Commonwealth Games wrestler, and
Yeah.
he's doing some wicked, really, really good stuff for the guys, and they're progressing real, real quick. So it's vital for some of the Thai boxers who's fought pro Thai boxing who want to get into MMA as well, which we've got now. So it's vital that they soak up our knowledge as well.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Because it's to have that for you to be investing so logically with people instead of saying like, listen, I can piece this together for you. Yeah, you
I'm not
might not
that
have
guy.
piece it together, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not that guy. I think that just comes out to like selfishness a lot of the time. I know everything and that's just the way it is. Listen to me. I think that's kind of narrow-minded as well in terms of a coach. A
Yes.
coach's job is to coach the best you can coach, and if you can't do something to the best of your abilities or you're not that versed in that area, then you need to point them in the right direction. Take Mason for example. He's got a kicking coach, a
Yeah.
taekwondo coach who does his kicking, Carl Betty. Then he's got Ollie. Ollie's doing a little bit of his wrestling, but majority of his wrestling is with Craig
Hmm.
who's worked with elite athletes all his life. You know what I mean? Since he was a kid, he was an elite athlete. Then he's gone through the Welsh judo system, fought Commonwealth Games and medal. He's an elite athlete himself. Then we've got Lyndon James, who was just dedicated boxing coach. Then you've got dedicated strength and conditioning coach. And then myself, who does like his MMA and jiu-jitsu as well. And like that's what you need when you want to be like a pro fighter. You need to kind of build a portfolio of coaches who are going to help you in each area. And I
Yeah.
find sometimes, especially these days, it kind of a lot of coaches are jack of all trades. You know what I mean? You've got to bring guys in to help, or you've got to point them in a direction. and you've got to be comfortable in doing that as well, you know.
You've got to be willing to say, I'm not the best guy for this. Like, it's not like
100%.
yeah, like that's one of those things. If you come to me for something, if you're coming to one of my classes and you want to learn wrestling, I'm going to say, listen, I'm the best guy in here to teach you wrestling, 100%. If you want to learn judo throws, I'm the best guy in the room to teach you judo throws. If you want to learn knees from the clinch, go and see so-and-so who's had 40 odd Thai fights. Go and see, you've got to be willing to turn around and say that, that because it's only ego that's stopping you, right? There's no what else.
Yeah. You don't want to give, like, a lot of people don't want to hand over their kind of mantle to someone else. You know what I mean? But I just find it, you can concentrate on your own thing, and you can be the best at your own little particular part. You know what I mean? So I think that's how we kind of do it. Yeah, like a lot of my guys train Thai boxing. Yeah, they train MMA and jiu-jitsu. Yeah, but I've got a couple of guys then who go and do individually, just go and do their boxing. Just straight boxing with Lyndon, and they go and do privates with Lyndon, or they go and attend some of his classes, and they get good at that. Even though they're good at Thai boxing, they still want to get good at boxing. Now, we could just say, like, oh no, what are you doing that for? You could just stay here, we're good at this. But no one's going to be better than someone who's done boxing all their life. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the key. And it's the same for the wrestling, same for the jiu-jitsu, same for everything. Like, even down to like the weight cuts, like Reece Jones does Mason's weight cuts as well. Like, I could like read how to do his weight cuts or do it online, or you know what I mean, and just say, oh, this is the way that so-and-so does it, we'll do it this way. But Reece has put like years and years of research into like making sure that it's like proper analytical, so I'm not going to be as good as him when I'm doing everything else. That's also it's silly
because you don't want to be either. You don't want to be as good as him. That's the thing. Like, Reece wants to be that good at that thing. Like, you don't want to be that good. You don't care. You don't want to read 5-6 hours a day on it.
Exactly, and when you've got someone who's dedicated to just that one area, you know what I mean. It just makes much more sense. It makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's definitely a logical approach, and that's, I mean, it's reflected in Mason's obviously your go-to guy. We could bring out like Jamie Hughes if we wanted to talk about guys who have done really well and perform, because he's performed at the highest level, and
Jamie's performed at like a real high level in jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? And someone who's come from the valleys, and trained like with me all his life. Yeah. From the age of, I think Jamie come in when he was like 17, I think. I want to say 17, something like that. Yeah. 16, 17. And yeah, he's been with me all his life, and that's someone who's come from the valleys and just worked hard, trained hard, and fought on the highest level in jiu-jitsu. So like, we're on the right track. And even then he breaks down, he does his own little strength and conditioning away on his own. That's like massive part of his game. And then he comes and does his jiu-jitsu. So it's the same thing, we could say, oh, just, do your strength and conditioning, or do this, do that. You need to be doing this, but you've got to leave your athletes or your guys to do their own little thing as well. They've got to kind of find a little break from, I think that's where the weights and the S&C comes into it, where it's still applicable to the job they want to do, but it's a break from what they're doing at the same time, which I think is good, is a good thing.
Yeah, but also because every single person who comes in that gym is different. And I mean, obviously I'm not telling you this, this, I'm just highlighting that, but everybody's different. So if I've got 30 guys on the mat, I can guarantee I'm going to explore 6 different teaching processes. Now, I've been to classes, and I'm sure you've attended classes and seminars and stuff, and you think, fuck me, you can't teach everyone that way. That works for this thing. And then I'll see the way that someone teaches, and I think, oh man, you've missed a trick there because so-and-so hasn't quite got that. You need to explain that a bit differently. But to be able to, I mean, the way that you understand something that's not your gig, let's use, for example, boxing. The way that you understand and process boxing, the jab or the 1-2 combination, is not going to be the same way that Mason understands it, that I understand it, that Nad understands it. Now, for you to try and then reinterpret that without looking at the way the footwork is, the body position, the hip movement, you're doing a disservice to the person, but more so you're doing your disservice to yourself as a coach, because you appear to be a coach who's not good enough, when in actuality, you're
Blagging
brilliant
it.
at the one thing
You're
that's
just
your
blagging
thing.
it. Yeah. You're just
Yeah.
blagging it was to a degree, you know. So, yeah, it's. I think it's the most logical way to, like you said, to approach any coaching, especially from an MMA standpoint. You know, especially from an MMA standpoint, where you've got someone like you said, we'll have guys who will be, you know, a lot more grappling based, where I'll push them more towards the wrestling, and then say, look, make sure you're boxing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I've got like strikers who are like I said, pro Thai box, who I'll push them heavy towards the wrestling to say you need to fix this and your jiu-jitsu, but you're already good at your stand-up, so just keep that sharp. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
it, you know, you've got to find your own way. But like I said, it's an old thing with me. Like a lot of the guys say in the academy that I teach everyone different, because I'll go to one group of guys, I'm like, what are you doing? You've done this a million times before. Just get on with it. And then I'll turn my back and I'll go, you okay? Do you need a hand? I'm that kind of guy. But like I've got to, like you said, you coach everyone different. You know what I mean? Like you've got your full-time guys who you've got to be on and just stay on them and make sure that they kind of stay on themselves and keep mentally switched on throughout the session. Because the longer they're mentally switched on, the better.
Yeah.
And then you've got to have some sessions where they need to have some fun as well, where they can just switch off and just have a bit of fun. And then you got your part-time guys who just want to enjoy jiu-jitsu for what it is. Now, it's pointless me teaching them the same as a full-time athlete, because it just doesn't work. Like, it's not going to work. They're not going to enjoy their training at all.
And you're not going to enjoy your teaching either. You're going
Not
to.
at all. Not at all. No. And
Yeah.
I like to have a bit of fun as well when I'm teaching. You know, I like to treat it more social. But then, like I said, with the guys who are full-time, then is business. That's your job. You know what I mean? Like I have a chat to my guys and say, what do you want to do? When they say they want to go full time, or they say they want to take it more serious, I say, well, map it out, write it down. And if you don't stick to it, I'll just hold you accountable. You know what I mean? If you come to me one day and say, I'm tired, I can't do it. So what did you write down on your sheet, mate? You got to hold yourself accountable. Like, this is how it
Yeah.
is. This is what you want to do. So you got to stick to it.
Yeah. That's exactly it. There's the amount of because you will have heard, as much as I have, bullshit. The amount of bullshit from people. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'm of the opinion of, don't even tell me anymore. Just do it. I'm going to notice that that's what you're doing, and I'm going to think.
I make them write it down.
Serious.
I make them write it down.
Yeah.
I think it's the best thing. It's the best approach. Just write it down. Say, right, okay, I've had guys come in a couple of months back in the original lockdown. I had a guy ring me and he was on my case for ages. I'm going to come. I want to be the best MMA guy that ever was. You know, I'm Anderson Silva. And I'm like, okay, cool. Come train him. You know, just come train him. And when he come train, I had a chat to him. So write down what you want to do. You tell me what you want to do. And if you stick to it, you'll be able to do it. You know, one session in, I haven't seen him again. So that says it all. Do you know what I mean? And if he does come back and he's like, oh man, this is hard, you know, say, right, knock one or two off your list and start with like 3 or 4 small little goals and then build up from it. You know what I mean? Because some guys write pro MMA in 3 months' time, UFC champion in 6 months' time. Do you know what I mean? That's how they write their things. You got to kind of strip it back with some guys. But yes, some come in and they got all the aspirations in the world, and one session in, I never see him again.
Yeah. That happens a lot. I mean, people used to say about Nad when Nad first got signed to UFC. Oh, Nad's good this, Nad's good that. Oh, Nad's striking this. That. I'm like, listen, there's not going to be a better example of anyone on this planet than Nad of work your fucking ass off.
Oh, yeah, he's savage.
Nad, like, it's one of, obviously Nad came to me when I had Olympians and he hadn't even had a pro fight, and he just became part of our boys, and we all started training together, and, you know, like Ronnie was all coming down, so we were all working together. So I've seen him from the beginning of his career, and it's one of those things, like, I can look at my fight career and I can now look at people like Nad or Mace and I can say, I don't work like that. I don't work like I always wanted to go fly birds of prey. I want to jump out of planes. I want to jump off buildings. I want to do. Nad wanted to be in the fucking gym from the moment it opened to the moment it closed. Nad wanted to spar everyone who ever came through the door, and Nad wanted to win every round. And I can go and spar with Nad, and Nad knows how well I'll do against Nad, and we know that. But I'm not going to do that every single day and want to like Nad does.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, take Mason and guys like that for example as well. He had a week off from his last fight, 1 week, and then he's back in training like he's never left.
But probably wanted to after 3 days.
Yeah, he literally had to force himself to a week off. You know what I mean? And that's just the type of people they are. You know, they just I call them grafters.
Yeah.
They get in the gym and they kind of they set the tone for the guys as well. You know what I mean? Because when guys are tired or when guys are down and or they want to sit around out, just look over and say he's not sitting out. That's why he's where he is. You know, he's not sitting out. He's not taking a backward step. That's your mantle. That's what you need to aim for. You know, so having guys like that around, guys like Nad, you know, and guys like Mace is critical. You know, the longer they stay around and kind of keep this level, the better.
Yeah. So, touching on to Mace, how long have you had him, mate? How long's Mace been with you?
He was in Welsh judo, so when I was training like solely jiu-jitsu, and I had my club in Aberdeen as well. We used to do a monthly training session down in the West, down in the Welsh Institute of Sport, with Craig Ewers and all the Welsh judo squad. So we used to go down there, just a big training day, like once a month. And that's when I met him first initially, and he was like 14. Because he lives in Blenavon, which is literally a couple of miles from where we live, he come and do some jiu-jitsu with us as well. So I've known him since he's like 14, and he's trained with us since he's about 14, you know. And I think he took like a couple of years off, like 2 years, I think, to go pro boxing.
Yeah.
But I still seen him. He was still around. He didn't leave, you know what I mean? You didn't like completely miss him for 2 years. He was around. And yeah, so 14 he started, but Craig Ewers knows him better than anyone because he's been with him forever since he was like a young kid, you know.
But you've been there from the beginning of his MMA career all the way through.
Cornered every fight, yeah.
Yeah, and then now, obviously, the last one was his first fight in the UFC. So it must be that must be amazing for yourself for that to be your first guy who's really good. Like people talk about the UFC like you've made it. I'm not necessarily of that way of thinking. I think like you can. As soon as Mason won his world title in Cage Warriors, he's made it. He's at UFC level, whether he's signed or not. He'd made it before he was in the UFC. He was an elite guy.
Yeah.
But
I think it's that what Mason said when he got signed to the UFC. I'm 0-0 now. It starts again. I'm 0-0, and that's the attitude he got. And that's the attitude we got as coaches as well. You know, we got the same. I think this is why he enjoys having us around, because as coaches we got a very similar like working attitude. Everything's like business. Everything's geared towards the fight. We have a bit of fun, you know, like everyone else. We have a bit of banter like everyone else. But I think we're very much the same personalities in our way. Like we hate losing. Everything's to the T. We love training, and that's the main thing.
Yeah. So how was that for you then, mate? The UFC experience was that was your first UFC behind the scenes, corner wise?
Yeah, that was my first one. Yeah.
How was that for you, mate? How did you find the experience?
To be honest with you, I didn't take it in at all because there's another fight. You know, like I said to Mason, we're here for another fight. Then I kind of switch everything off in my head. I don't worry about if it's UFC. I don't worry about if it's in the car park next door. Do you know what I mean? Is a fight for us. That's the way we approach it. So, to be honest with you, I didn't really like. I know it sounds stupid, but I didn't really experience it in my head, if you know what I mean. I was there. I was there for another fight, and we was there for so long. We was just anticipating the fight and gearing up towards it. So it wasn't as if like we was here, we in the UFC, and we was like, oh, this is awesome. It was just another fight for us.
What was the process, mate? Because of all these restrictions and stuff and getting to Fight Island, what did they make you go through? What was the process you had to do?
We went up to like London on the Wednesday, I think it was. So we tested and stayed in our rooms for like 24 hours. And then if you got obviously a negative test, then you're allowed to fly. So then we flew, I think we flew on a Friday. Yeah, it was a Friday. We flew Friday. We got out to Fight Island, tested and stayed in our rooms for another 24 hours. And then we was allowed out then on like the Sunday. So on the Sunday we got out. And then you're kind of free to roam around the hotel and stuff like that. But then every 2 days you have a mandatory test. So I said to the boys, like, it's like we're running a gauntlet, you know what I mean? Getting these tests all the time is like, there's 4 of us here. We're all testing twice, like every 2 days we are tested. we are running a gauntlet. One of us are going to throw something up. You know what I mean? So if we get to a fight, that's the fight itself. Like,
Yeah,
so if we make it to the fight and none of us test positive, that's the fight done. That's the fight itself. So we was kind of happy with that. You know what I mean? But I heard some horror stories out there with some guys who was like, I'm not going to mention no names, but there was guys out there who tested negative in London, flew out, tested positive, but then had 2 tests after that, and then tested negative again, and then they flew them home. They just shipped them out. So like they was left there without like a corner, you know what I mean, and just stuck in their room for 7 days, and they was let out like 2 days before their fight. So then if you think like you're let out 2 days before your fight, you've got like 24 hours, and then you're cutting weight, and then you're fighting. So like they had no break. Do you know what I mean? It was horrible for those guys. Like, but you know, the process is not Fight Island. You know what I mean? Where you go in and you're relaxing and enjoying it. We was literally waking up, training, spending an hour or 2 by the pool, training again, going to bed. That's literally how we was doing it.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, you got quite lucky in that you had a UK time-based card. So that was yeah, because some guys are fighting like ridiculously times in the morning, aren't they? Some guys are fighting at 2 a.m. in the morning and stuff.
Yeah, well, if you was on the McGregor card where they was walking out at like 7 or 8 a.m., something like that, I think it was. Like if you're on late prelims or early main card, you're fighting early morning. You know what I mean? And that's not good. Like that's not good. So I think we fought like 3 o'clock UK time.
Yeah.
Which was I think that was like 8 o'clock like Abu Dhabi time. So that was perfect for us.
Yeah, there's only a few hours difference between the Abu Dhabi and us, isn't there? So it's not so bad. But those early cards where you're fighting at stupid clock, because you haven't got. Also, if you could go out there 2-3 weeks before and acclimatise, then but because obviously once you're there, everything's locked down as well. You're stuck there, and you've got to try and acclimatise in your room for 3 days. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, we heard some guys was obviously doing a switch clock, so they was like sleeping through the day and then awake through the night just to be kind of acclimatized for the fight. Mm-hmm. You know, so
when I went to Pride, when James was fought in Pride and I was going to Pride, we tried to do that then. James was trying to do that all those years ago, like put blackout curtains and stuff and trying to acclimatize, and he's like, mate, you better try and acclimatize because you're going to be pretty fucking bad. And I'm like, but my job's to be there for you. I'm not. You ain't got to cut weight. Do you know what I mean? So that's one thing. My job's just to be there for you. It's only press and, got to do like public workouts and all pads for you and stuff. That's easy for me. But when you go there, like you realize like, oh, man, it is a massive, like that is a big deal to have to cut weight and stuff in those situations as well. Is a big deal.
Yeah, definitely. It's not nice. You know, for us, the weight cut and everything was perfect. Everything, even the trip, everything was brilliant. It was all like kind of no hiccups whatsoever. So there was no kind of like, shit, we forgot this or we haven't done this. Everything was like plain sailing towards the fight. So there was no hiccups at all. So that was good for us.
What was your the training facilities like there for you? Just everything in the room?
Yeah, it was literally got our own rooms where we stayed, and then a training room, which was opposite our room. It just had some mats down, and then obviously that's where we done the weight cut now there. Then so it was some mats, and then they had a gym downstairs where we would go. So Mace would do his running, I would do my weight session, and then go and do some jiu-jitsu or pad work with Mace in the afternoon, and then go back and we was doing pads in the evening and jiu-jitsu, and then some yoga, and then off to bed.
Yeah. So
it's just.
It sounds like the fucking dream, if I'm honest.
It was okay. It was but it's like being confined in that hotel, and then you're building yourself up to fight as well. Like if that's everyday living and you haven't got to worry about the fight, then give it me. Do you know what I mean? That's good. Like, but
what, a 5-star hotel, all expenses paid?
Yeah, I know. But it was. It was okay. It wasn't that bad. But like I said, I didn't really take none of it in. It was just the fight, another fight for us.
So the fight. Have you watched the fight back since you've been back, or have you still focusing on what you saw on the night?
Hundreds of times.
Yeah. So
that's what I do. That's my job. I watch. I watch a lot.
So let's we won't talk about the result just yet. We'll have a talk about the actual fight. For me, like people are saying, like obviously, oh, you know, Mason, what do you think? I was like, what's his game plan? I was like, well, for me, if I'm Mason, my game plan is to push the pace, be on him, because that's Mace all over, right? Like push the pace, be on him. When he hits you, be in the pocket, trade him back, pushing on him, be boom, 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 boom. Do all those fucking things. Be there. If it clinches, get the takedown. Don't clinch unnecessarily, because the guy's strong. He's good. If you clinch, get the takedown, or don't clinch. Be away from there. That's what.
Yeah.
And then he went out and fought perfectly, exactly how I would want him to fight. So is that what you had in mind? Did he execute what you wanted him to do?
Yes and no. Being honest, without giving too much away, yes and no. You know, he done what he had to do in the later rounds. You know, what anyone else would have done. You know, early on, footwork was good, and then it kind of, like you'll tell yourself, it kind of went to a degree. But you know, the game plan wasn't to have another Mason Jones fight. You know what I mean? Where like that wasn't the game plan. But then when you get dragged into that, then that's where Mason's good anyway. The pressure was key. Pressure, footwork. You know, combinations of punches, staying in the pocket a little bit and kind of hurting him on the counters was key. One or two things we've highlighted the work on, which is a good thing. This is why a loss is always a good thing, because you can kind of work on those. The wrestling, he got taken down once or twice, but we didn't neglect the wrestling leading up to the camp at all. We knew that Mike was obviously capable of taking him down at any stage of the fight, you know. So we worked on that. But I think is when you're adding so much pressure and you're walking forward so much and you're trying to put your combinations so much, then something's going to give, you know. You're either going to give a foot and allow the pressure to ease and then defend the takedown, or you're going to keep pressuring and hoping the takedown don't come. So it's you know, is a trade-off to a certain degree. So
also in that fight, Mike didn't necessarily fight how many people would predict, because Mason's pressure was so intense that Mike started to get tired. So you're thinking, right, he's tired, he's going to react how someone who... But he wouldn't. Then he'd come back with these explosive combinations out of nowhere, and you're thinking, you don't look like you're capable of doing this if I judge it on the last minute of fighting, you know? So it was really hard, from looking at it from a fighter's point of view and how Mace was performing. It must have been really hard for Mason to tell there's going to be a takedown coming, because it's from a guy who looks genuinely fatigued. And then the next minute, he's exploding like he's fresh out the gates again.
Yeah, I think it was like halfway through the second round where Mason like proper cracked him against the fence, you know. And a typical Mace would be like clinch him up, weigh him down, you know, look to build shots. But then when you've been in a fight where someone's dangerous, like obviously he clipped Mace a couple of times and he's so explosive and dangerous, I don't begrudge Mason looking to finish, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was one of those, like if it was more of a like pragmatic fight where the pace was kind of slower and Mace could see his power shots come in, and then once he had him hurt there, I don't think he would have let him off. I think he would have clinched up and he would have done some damage in the clinch there. But when he had him hurt and he had him against the fence and he had a bit of distance on him, I don't begrudge Mason giving himself a foot and looking to crack him again. You know what I mean? So it's a big learning curve for all of us. You know, we've identified a lot of things we got to work on, which is exciting for us as coaches. That's the important part. And then we can try and put it into practice now for the next one, you know?
Yeah. So at the end, how did you feel about the decision compared to what you... I mean, it makes no difference. This is the thing. People get all et up about the decisions. They make no fucking difference, because it is what it is. But compared to what you saw, how do you tally it up compared to what you saw?
Number one, you could not be more proud of the guy. That's number one. Number one, the guy stood in the pocket and traded and did not take a backward step, you know.
And Mike's a fucking big guy. He's a
fucking animal. He's a fucking animal, mate. Honestly, I've never seen someone standing there like a lesser man would have been gone. A lesser man would have been out of there. You know what I mean? And he stood in there and he cracked him as much as Mike cracked him back, you know. But my initial feeling, it was 1-1 going into the third.
Yeah.
He lost the first, won the second, in my opinion. It was 1-1. And then Mace put pressure on him in the last, 2 minutes of that third round. But then Mike was firing back with a more, powerful shots, the more impactful shots, which I think they look at. But if you look at all the stats, Mason's shots, building his shots and putting his combinations together was beyond Mike. So I think looking at it, if maybe Mason stole a takedown right at the end of the third, or risk something like significant, then he maybe would have stole a third, But that we live and learn. We live and learn. You know what I mean?
Like, for me, I scored it a draw because I thought I had 1 and 2. 1 and 2 went how everyone knows they went. That's not up for discussion. And in the third round, I thought, well, Mason's supplying all the pressure. He's landing more, but Mike's landing clean and big.
Yeah.
So you got to say that's a 9-9 round.
I think, like for me, how I looked at it, Mike started well in the third, but then faded at the end, and Mason come back and really pushed on from 3 minutes on. He really pushed hard to kind of like build a shot. So, I'm not upset about the decision, if I'm honest, you know what I mean? I'm not upset about it because, like you said, you couldn't be more proud of the guy. Like, if you want someone to fight, then Mason's your guy. If you want someone to fight for the side, he's your guy. Like, so he'll fight. He's not going nowhere. But maybe like looking at us as coaches and Mason as well, like we got a couple of tactical decisions to make on how the fight's going, and then we can try and implement them tactics into the game plan. Then
Yeah, I mean the thing is as well,
like Mike did, Mike stole a couple of takedowns here and there, which he didn't keep Mason down at any point. But I think Mason's jiu-jitsu is really, really, really good. His wrestling is really, really good. So I think we can work on that even more, and then maybe coming back into the next fight, you'll see a different type of fight.
Yeah, I think when Mike didn't fight particularly how I thought he was going to fight as well, that makes it hard because he didn't I expected how Mike fought the first round. I expected him to fight every round, but Mason was so on him and hitting him with stuff and combinations on the exit, and you could hear big shots landing. You could hear him crisp because there's no audience or anything.
Yeah,
and he's landing massive shot. Then he'd hit Mace with a shot that you could hear, but Mace is back throwing 3 or 4. And I think
that's the good thing about a crowd and no crowd. So like it can go either way, can't it? But when you've got the commentary team, like we could hear them like super clear. So we got a commentary team like sat to our left here, and then you've obviously got judges around the octagon. Now when these guys are going, whoa, oh my God, then the judges are hearing that no matter what. Yeah. I don't care what you say. Yeah. Any human being's hearing that and going, shit. But if you watch that without any commentary whatsoever, then there's room for dispute. I watch I watched the Burns fight today with no commentary. This morning, I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. I put the fights on, no commentary. I don't want to hear what other people got to say. You know what I mean? I want to make my own mind up on what I'm seeing. And I think that's what happens in these no crowd contests. Is it is highlighted. And I've been in now. This is our third no crowd fight, obviously with the McColgan fight, the Proctor fight, and now this fight. Yeah. You can. It does make a massive difference when that commentary so close to around to the judges. 100%.
I mean, I completely I agree with you from that aspect that any influence as a spectator, any influence is going to help. And so there's been such terrible judging decisions recently. I mean, Mason's won a terrible judging decision. People were saying,
that's what I was just going to say. I was going to say this. Yeah, I'm going to say the same thing. The judges got it. The judges got it spot on. Maybe not a unanimous decision, but the judges got it. They got the feel of the fight like perfect. You know what I mean? That's like even Mason will tell you himself. I think I lost that fight. You know what I mean? That's the first words he said to me when I went in the cage. I lost that fight. You know what I mean? So, like, we got no arguments, not at all. It's just, I think, we just trying to highlight the factors of the fight. You know what I mean? Sometimes the factors go against you a little bit. You know what I mean?
And also a judge. What people forget is a judge is viewing. It's not like a BJJ judge who's walking around the referee who's walking around the mat.
It's subjective to them. It's completely.
It's from one angle. It's from one angle. You're not going to see the little sneaky uppercut against the fence. You're maybe not going to see it. One judge might see it. One judge might not. You're not seeing the replay. You're not. So it's really difficult because you're judging from such a small angle of a fight that we see from a 360-degree view. And it wasn't. It wasn't the Volkanovski versus thingy robbery. It wasn't one of those.
I agree.
It was just simply, for me, I scored it different. But like you say, for me, when I was watching it, if there was everything that I wanted Mace to do in a fight, he did it. There was no, you couldn't ask.
You couldn't
Well,
do no
apart
more.
from, I'd like him to have not got it and not be so willing to take shots and give shots back. I'm like, fuck. But at the same time, this fight is worth its weight in gold, because if you have this fight in your 4th fight in the UFC and suddenly it's all poured on you and the pressure's on it, Mace has had it. Like, he's never going to have to dig as deep as he had to dig for this fight. No. This was exhausting.
The shackles are off kind of thing now, you know what I mean? If I'm honest with you, like, there was no nerves from his part at all. He was relaxed all fight week. The weight cut was perfect. Everything was perfect. Like I said, there's no, like, even the fight was going, like, you know, how a Mason Jones fight go to a certain degree, you know, maybe, like you said, a little bit cleaner here and there. But when someone's cracked you early on like that and you know you've got to dig deep, I think that changes the complex of a fight in your head. You know, especially for a fight that we're not in there. We're not there. We can see 2 guys here, but we can't see what's going on in here and what Mason's seeing, you know what I mean? So, like, for him to do what he done, I take my hat off every day of the week, you know? Yeah. He's stuck in there. But, like, you know, it's just one of those things. I think it didn't do him no harm. You know, he got 50 grand out of it, which is always nice in your first fight. We spoke to a lot, like I said, no names, but we spoke to a lot of guys around the hotel who were in, like, obviously high up in the UFC, and they all enjoyed the fight.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to get a win, but, you know, if you're gonna kind of lose, then it's not a loss. You know what I mean?
Yeah, listen, mate. If you can't forget your loss from the moment you walk out of the cage, there's no point doing it, because you got to look at the next fight, right? You guys aren't preparing to refight Mike in the same circumstance. Even if they said you had to fight Mike again on your next fight, you're not going to be preparing to fight the same guy who you fought last time. So the future is another fight. So that loss or that win, either of them has to stay behind you, because you got a future to go on and fight now, you know?
Yeah, you got to, obviously, he's, like, Mason's got to go, and, like, it's not one of those, let's pick ourselves up and go again. It's not one of them. It's continue the momentum. That's key. It's not like, let's continue the momentum that got, because, you know, that fight could have went either way, and it was a great fight for the general public to watch, by all means. But, you know, it's not a fight where you're like, fucking come on, mate, you got to dig deep now and get on with it kind of thing. It's a fight where, like, we make small adjustments, and 9 times out of 10 he wins our fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one of those. So I'm not mad. It's one of those things. It happens.
And no one in the division's going to be looking forward to fighting him. Yeah. No one's going to be looking forward to fighting Mason Jones now, mate. It's one of them.
I don't think so. And to be honest with you, like when Mason's won, but had, you know, maybe the one fight that I say that, like, sticks in our mind is, like, the Alexei Mankachev fight, where he got cut early on. Mm-hmm. He chased the fight and he got cut early on. After that, I've never seen such a rise in someone's capabilities just in the gym as well, like, just for pure determination not to fight like that again.
Yeah.
So, like, this, and I've seen it already now. You watch him in the gym now, and he's mentally ready to push straight away now again. So, like, I think he's going to go out to Team Alpha Male now, which is awesome. We encourage stuff like that as well as coaches. Get out there, learn, experience something different, because that's where your work is, you know what I mean? Your work is in the UFC, so the more guys you get around you that's doing the same job as you, the better. So, that'd be good for him as well. So, yeah, it's all just, you know, like I said, it's not pick yourself up and brush yourself off and get on with it. It's more like continue what you're doing, but let's make small adjustments as we're going.
Yeah, which is the perfect attitude. I mean, there's no doubt, from what I do know of Mace and the little that we've trained together and stuff like that, there's no doubt in my mind Mason is the guy who he's not going to need you, his missus, Craig. He's the guy who's going to shut a door and say, right, I need to fucking work on this and I need to go and boo. So when he comes in and you say to him, right, we need to work, he's going to be like, yeah, we fucking do. He seems to me, from what I know of him, to be that guy who is everything that you want, so that when you do shut the door and say, right, we need to do it, you know he's going to be there to listen.
Yeah. He doesn't take anything to, like, as offensive either, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I say, like, you know, Mace, come on, mate, he's like, I'm sorry, I know, boom, and he's on with it. You know, and he adjusts so quickly, and to be honest, we've identified a lot of areas where we could have done outside of of fighting. You know what I mean? Outside of the fight, we've identified a lot of areas where we think that we could excel more in or fix. And then the guys who are in that area, they're working on it. You know what I mean? So say, for instance, it's something fucking so silly that, you know, like things like, oh, your S&C stuff then. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
are you doing what you need to be doing? Reese is looking at that part of it, but have you got all the equipment around you to be able to do it? So if you haven't, then go and source it. Your tools are your tools. You know what I mean? That's what you need to be able to fight. So stuff like that, and even something as silly as I can be. So that's what the guys are doing now, and that's what we are doing as well.
Yeah, which is exciting for the next fight. You know, that's the one thing. It's that this last fight makes you excited for the next fight. As a fan, it makes me excited to see Mason fight again. So as a coach like yourself, you must be excited every day to work towards that.
Not
only
like I said, it's like for the rest of the guys as well. When you see someone, you know what I mean, one of your teammates perform that way, it's gonna make you excited to think, fuck, you know what I mean, I'm training with this guy, he set the example. Yeah. As well, because I've had guys who've fought MMA before, and we've had an MMA team for a long, long time, but this is our first guy that's got the UFC, so he is in the guy's eyes on a bit of a pedestal, you know what I mean, in the gym, as in he sets the example. Yeah. So these guys are looking at that as well, and looking at that fight and saying, man, that's what we need. You know, that's how you dig deep. You know, that's one of those things which I'm more proud of myself as a coach, because I know those guys are watching and going, like after the last fight where he knocked Proctor out, I've never seen the gym so buzzing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Just because of the risk that he took, and he took that risk off his own back. You know, and he asked us about it. He's like, well, what do you think? And I was like, man, if, you know, I never say no, because as soon as you say no, you put doubt in your fighter's mind straight away. Yeah. If I say, look, no, that's a bad idea, mate, straight away is doubt in his mind. If that's what he wants to do, then that's what we'll do. Yeah. That's key, because then you're backing the guy, you know. But after that fight, when you're going up a division, you're TKOing someone who's 12-1. And putting him away as a lighter guy for guys in the academy and the kids and all the guys who want to go and kind of be an MMA fighter in the future. You got to be looking at that and thinking, "Fuck!" Like,
oh yeah,
that's the level we need to be at.
That's exactly it. And I mean, people can take the wrong message, like. To bring it back to myself, for want of a better reference here, there's not a man on the planet I wouldn't have fought in my MMA career. You offer me anyone, I'll fight you. 2 weeks notice, go and fight in Brazil. Yeah, I'll go. I'll be main event. I'll do it. But will I dedicate the 6 months of my life and not go out with my bird of prey and not go paragliding to do that? So Mace, there's no doubt in my mind, Mace would fight Proctor and he would go, but what Mason's done is Mason's dedicated himself to fighting at welterweight to beat Proctor. So what he's giving back to the gym is not the fact of, you know, you're going to have 40 people in the gym who've got the mentality, I'll fight anyone. We're fighters. That's what we do. I'll fight any man on the planet. But will you dedicate yourself to be the athlete that it takes to beat Proctor? And I was worried about the Proctor fight, in honesty, because he's a big, rangy guy. Mason gets hit. And I was like, right, if this guy does fucking hit him clean, and Mason goes into Mason Jones mode, is the guy going to be too big? And is Mason going to... But the guy caught Mason.
The funny thing about this fight is, like, obviously we game plan for everything, and the game plan was fucking perfect, right? Yeah. And there was some conversation like a couple of weeks before, and we was like, Mason said something about him coming out southpaw. He said, I think he might come out southpaw to shoot, obviously, off his strong side, and shoot and clinch and work off his strongest side. And he said, I'm just going to practice some stuff going southpaw. And, you know, he just had a feeling. I don't know whether he's seen something or whatever. And then the day of the fight, he walked in by the cage. I was upstairs fucking lying down or something. And him and Craig went down to the cage. And they watched him shadow boxing in the cage. And he was southpaw. And he come back upstairs. He said, I'm going to knock this cunt out. That was it. He just said, I'm going to knock him out. As soon as he come out southpaw, and in the fight as well, as soon as he come out southpaw, I was like, man, you're done. Because Mason fights really well against like southpaw guys like that, and he just knows, because of his boxing credentials as well, he knows the shots to throw. He knows how to sit on the shoulder. He knows exactly what he's doing. So we as like coaches, we kind of just took our foot off the gas and just said, go do your thing.
Well, like
And he did.
I trained with Mace, obviously, like 2 weeks after. I think you were both down, so I wrestled with Mace then at Peds, and we were chatting for about the first 3 minutes of a round. We were just chatting about his last fight, and we were talking about the Ponta fight. He said, like, he hit me, and like that's when I wanted to know what it was going to be like. He said, and he hit me quite clean and hard, which we all saw anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he said, like, and I knew, like fuck yeah, he's got a dig, but I can get out of the way of that shot and counter that. I can get out of the way of that shot, because I was like. I said, what it looked like to me is it looked like you got clipped and you thought to yourself, right, I got to go forward and make sure I'm in the pocket and banging him. He's like, no. He said, as soon as he clipped me, I knew where my shot was to land. Yeah. He said, and I knew that I was going to catch him with it. And because my worry going in was that Mace was going to keep coming forward and get caught with something. And then Proctor was going to be big and strong because he's fucking big. So I was thinking, like, those long guys are, for some reason, they're fucking strong, those long guys. And I was like, right, so but then when he explained to me afterwards, like when we were grappling together, I was like, everything you said is how it looked now when you go back and look at the fight back. So it's obvious that once he got caught with that shot, that's what these people don't understand. If you get a good level fighter, once we get hit, we're already thinking about, okay, you've caught me with that. Now I know you need somebody. And Mason knew. It's like he knew. Right, I know how to cope with this. He's not catching me.
I think if Proctor played to his strengths as well, he would have given Mason a real tough time just because of how athletic, strong, and big and rangy he was, you know. But I think they come out with a game plan that was just overcoached as well. Coming out southpaw, trying to be a little bit clever, you know what I mean? Like you're taking tools out your guy straight away. You're taking those tools away. Like unless you're comfortable southpaw, why are you coming out to fight southpaw? You know what I mean? It takes years. Master being southpaw, you know what I mean? It takes years to master out to be a good striker anyway, and then it's going to take even longer.
Like it seemed like there was a bit of an arrogance about them in the and that's not a personal attack in the way that they fought. Like a bit of an arrogance in a bit like he's not going to be able to hurt me with his power. So when he dropped him, like he couldn't even pop back up. He had to slide along on his ass because he suddenly got hit and he was like, "Fuck, I've hit," and now this guy's coming at me. You know?
Yeah, and like you said, it was an element of arrogance, and I won't dig into it too much, but like we did have a little bit of a bust up after with like the coaches to a degree because I didn't feel like they done their guy like any favors whatsoever. You know what I mean? And Mason said something to him, and they kicked off, and then they started shouting at me, and I was like, you know, it is what it is. Go and look after your guy. Do you know what I mean? Go and look after your guy because it's not about you as a coach. It's got fuck all to do with you. You are here to mitigate the guy, and that's it. It's got nothing to do with you. You go and look after your guy and make sure he's okay. That's what I was saying. Like, but you know, I don't think they've done him any favors whatsoever. You know what I mean? And if it paid off, it would have probably been a fucking stroke of genius. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But when it doesn't pay off, then you got to look at yourself and think, "Fuck, did I really do the right thing?" You know.
And your game plan might have worked against 90% of fighters, but 90% of fighters aren't Mason fucking Jones. And the thing is
and the thing when you got someone like Mason stepping up a weight who's hungry as well, that's the issue.
Yeah. Well, he knows what's coming if he wins. He knows what he's fighting for.
He's not. He's mate. When he's got something stuck in his head, he's the fucking nightmare. Yeah. You're not stopping him. Like you're not stopping him. If he says like, say we're rolling whatever, and he says I want to catch you with this, and this, or I want to work this, and this, look out because he's gonna get it. Yeah. He's one of those. You know what I mean? He'll keep going and going and going.
Yeah, and that for me was what highlighted from that fight. It looked to me like Proctor, I'm not going to use the word underestimated, but it looked to me like they had so much faith in their game plan. What they didn't bank on was that Mason can fucking bang. He can take any shot that you're going to throw at him. So if you don't put him away with your clean shot, he's going to come at you. And then when he does come at you, he's going to maul you. So you can't butt scoot against Mason Jones. You got to be back up on your feet in a way. Don't try butt scoot into the fence.
Yeah, I take nothing away from Proctor. He's a hell of a fighter, and I hope to see him back. You know what I mean? He's a fucking great fighter. Like, you know, he's done some good stuff, but you know, you always back your guy. You always back your guy.
They got it wrong.
When he come up to me and when he come up to me straight away and he said, "I'm gonna fucking knock him out," I was like, fuck, he's gonna have a tough night. Like, he's gonna have, when you've got someone who's that mentally strong, you're gonna have a tough night.
Yeah. And it went beautifully. So, you said you watched last night's UFC. I seen last night you posted on Facebook something that was people kept asking me, what's your prediction? Because I did obviously the fight breakdown for Conor and that as well. People were saying, what's your prediction? I was like, well, I think Burns will either stop.
Can I take a second to have a wee minute? Is that all right?
Shoot off me. You shoot off a wee. You come back.
1 second.
I'll keep it chatting for now. Will you short have a wee? No problem. So last night's UFC, obviously, Greg posted a thing up about his worries about the Burns fight. Not so much worries, I wouldn't say that they were. They were just what he thought Burns had to do to get the win, and whether he was going to do it, and also what Usman could do. And they fell very much in line with what I was thinking, which is what I'm thinking we'll cover when Greg comes back in. I'll talk to him about that, because it was in line with what I was thinking in a way. And then obviously the fight went how it went. I'm sure that anyone who's listening who's a fan of the UFC would have seen it by now anyway. So it's not going to be like a massive thing. And my opinion always comes out of the fact that for some reason I can't like Usman. I have no idea why that is. As a fighter, he's obviously fantastic, but I can't like the guy for some reason. So,
sorry, mate.
No, I don't, mate. Listen, I just carry on.
Too much coffee and too much water.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, like, so you made a prediction, not so much a prediction. It was sort of in line. People were asking me what I thought was going to happen, and I was like, right, I think Burns could knock him out. I don't think he'll sub him. I think he could catch him early, and then because he's a pressure fighter, if he catches him early, he could finish him. But I don't want him to overcommit and ruin it. Also, if he does start to overcommit, Usman he knows how to play the fight out for the full, so he'll make it really difficult. And then Burns clipped him and didn't commit at all, and I was like, "Fuck, no!"
I spoke to a lot of the guys like leading up to it, and he's like, "How do you think it's going to go?" I spoke to, like you're doing training. How do you think it's going? I said, I kind of don't think it's going to be a fight where Usman's going to clinch him up against the fence, because I don't think he wants that, because Burns he'll throw anything and the kitchen sink at him when he's against the fence.
Yeah.
And if he does get taken down, I don't think he'll care about getting taken down. What I did say, which was kind of good, I said Burns' looping shots is going to be an issue if Usman starts firing straight down the pipe. If you look at like the Colby Covington fight, you look at those type of fights where he just literally threw down the pipe until he wore you down. I didn't think it was going to end so early, if I'm honest with you. I thought it would go into like 4 or 5 rounds. And I think he would have done the same as the Covington. But when it come that early, and when he cracked him and his switch stance, and when he was switching stance as well and throwing a right jab, switching stance and throwing the left, and I was like, man, they've done their own work on trying to counter those looping shots, which was perfect, really. It's crazy how good Usman is. Like,
well, I think that Usman had all the attributes to beat Burns. He knows he can't fight him on the floor, right? He knows that's a disaster, on top or on the bottom. But he has all the elements, and I think the first round, he neglected to implement them. So then when he goes back to his corner and they come back and they're like, push that jab in his face. Put that jab in his face. That was 100%, because you're so much taller with really long arms and a really good jab, keep a man who's dangerous on the inside at bay on a jab. Like, if he gets past the jab, land something different or clinch. But and then when he started doing that in the second, and he started to time the jab and then feint it and get enough reaction that he could then follow up on the second. As soon as he started doing that, I was like, oh, this is going to be a tough night for Burns now, You've
seen Burns just stop. Like, he was stuck in the mud at after in the second round, where he just like stood there and he was moving his head, but he wasn't moving his body at all. And I was like, oh man, come on, just start moving, start getting on your toes a little bit, And I haven't watched it again. I've only watched it once. I haven't watched it with commentary either, so I don't know what the guys were saying on commentary. I haven't got a clue, but I watched it without any commentary. And then when he was stuck in the mud, and then he threw like a big overhand right, and he threw it, and then he come back, and he was like really lethargic. I was like, he's done. He's done. Like you could just tell he was done. You know, he was finding his range difficult then. But the first round was perfect for him. Now it was perfect.
It just, for me, for the way that he usually fights, when he landed that overhand right behind the ear, which is the shot that I would have thrown against Usman. That's the one. Like even start feinting a jab to the body to then land, because Usman don't like body shots. So feint a jab to the body and start landing big to the head. He landed that shot. He should have poured it on him, because you're not worried about the takedown.
You're not worried about the ground engagement either. You're not worried about the grappling. None of that. You know, and what I was impressed with Burns, I got to be honest, where he mixed a couple of takedown attempts in as well. But I just think it was a little bit too late. You know, I think he didn't keep him I think it was too late before he started doing it. I think if he started doing it,
maybe they were a bit like, this isn't working. So
there was one where he went in for a double, and then he switched the double to single, and that was like real close. He was real deep.
Yeah,
and I think that was more a tactic than it was like instinct at the time. Yeah. But I think if he started doing that from the off, mixing his strikes with just, you know, try to implement the rest and then throw him off a little bit, I think he would have had a little bit more success.
Yeah, I think second round, really, as soon as he started getting clipped with that jab, if it was me, I mean, I'm not getting punched in the face by Usman, I have to say, but if I would be thinking, start stepping off at angles and kick the leg, because you're not worried about the bad takedown off the kick. You know Usman's got bad knees. Try and kick the leg as much as you can to slow down the pressure on the jab. But it looked to me like once he started clipping him with that jab, all game plans had gone out the window, and it was a bit like, I don't know what the next step is. You know?
Yeah, because like Burns, clipped him once or twice with some nice body kicks as well. You know, and I think if he just stayed at distance, like kept the center and made it a distance fight with his kicks rather than trying to like knock him out, and I think it would have been different. But it is what it is now.
It showed how good Usman was again. I mean, I can't like him for some reason. I don't know why I don't like Usman, but I can't. As a fighter, I love him.
The issue with have you ever sat there and said like, oh, I tell you what, I'm really excited to go and watch Usman's highlights. No one said that, but I forced myself to watch some of his fights. I have forced myself because he's so clinical on how he approaches the fight. I have forced myself to watch a lot of his fights, and to say that I enjoyed them is not great. But you've got to admire for someone to take minimal damage and keep winning and winning and winning. You know, is quite impressive.
And he's tough when he does take damage. This is the thing. He's not like, that's not the first person to clip him. Like Masvidal clipped him. Colby landed on him.
Colby had him like hurt. Like Colby had him hurt, and he looked quite amateurish when he was hurt as well. If you know what I mean, he didn't like. Yeah. He was like, oh shit, you know, it was like rabbit in the headlights kind of thing, like. And still managed to come out and just put a beating on him, you know, and that's one of the best fights I've. And to say you didn't enjoy that fight, and that's an Usman fight, that was a great fight. That was a great fight.
Yeah. I mean, but even in the Burns fight, when he got clipped, he does this thing of like bending down, which a lot of amateur guys do when they get hit. They sort of like bend and reach.
Yeah.
And when I watch that, I'm like, that's a guy who's not been hurt a lot. Reacting like in training and stuff, reacting to getting hurt. But then he comes back, he got hurt, he comes back, and he was so technically precise. He didn't come back with a bit between his teeth, and he came back and just stuck to a really technical game plan. And all credit to him, you know.
Yeah, I seen something on Twitter that he was like the little interview after he done, and he said that's how the majority of their training sessions went, where Burns would come out and put it on him and clip him, and then he would take over and dominate for the rest, you know. So when the lead up to the fight was coming out and they said, how do you think this fight's going to go? He said they already know who's won this fight. I think that was what he was digging at, you know. We've trained so much together that he's going to come out strong, but then I'll just take over with being intelligent, you know.
Also, there's no pressure. There's no pressure because you're known as a boring fighter. If you take it 5 rounds and you could keep your title, so what? Burns has got to finish you. The pressure's on him. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
You know, like, so yeah,
you're not going to win a decision fight against someone who's the master at decision fighting.
and has no interest in making it exciting.
No, just win.
Yeah, just
like
win.
I kind of see like GSP in him in a way, if you know what I mean. Where GSP would like box, kick, take down, guard, work, round over, and then GSP come out in the next round and he would like box, kick, take down, round over. You know what I mean? And he could do that until he just wore you down and finished you. And Usman is very, very similar, like very similar in his ways, you know.
It's just
Not
I
as
think it's like,
athletically as a striker, but in his like the way he goes around it.
but I think that there's a massive amount of credit needs to be paid, which doesn't, from people like yourself, you'll know it, but for the mass public watching, there's a huge credit needs to be paid to people who can stay so on the game plan, who can go around down and can come back out and stay so. Well, that's just that one's the next one now. We go here and we do this. We go here and we do this. And you get into a bit, even if you catch someone to take a little step off a little bit, here's where we go. And there's some credit to be given to people who can stay so on plan.
Yeah, because when it doesn't go to plan, it's so easy to switch, innit? It's so easy to say, shit, that ain't working, we need to do something different. But I think once you've set a game plan, you always have a plan B of what might happen, or what, like when you were game planning, you kind of look at your guy's strengths to start with. Like, what's his strengths? Let's work from there. And then you look at what the other guy's good at, and then you game plan just in case that happens, you know? But with Usman, it seems like no one's going to take him down. No one's going to take him down. No one's really going to push him on the back foot, which Burns did for a little bit, but then once he gave that centre up, then he was done. But
I think Masvidal might, with a full camp, give Masvidal a full camp. I think Masvidal might push him back a bit.
I think Masvidal gets wrestle fucked.
Yeah, he might have to change his game. He might have to change his game plan to fight Masvidal.
Yeah.
But I think if anyone can push him backwards, it might be Masvidal. He might stand in his face.
I think a full camp Rocky would be good. Leon Edwards, I think a full camp again. Yeah, I think because, you know, Leon's tough to take down. He's durable as fuck. I think he could stay in his face, but
we
for
need
how
to see
long?
him fight.
You know what I mean?
We need to see him fight. He's been out for too long.
I hope they do the Colby. And Rocky fight. That'd be awesome because
that'd be great.
I think that's a fight everyone want to see, you know. And I think Rocky could come out on top of that as well because you know, no one likes Colby.
What did you think of the Rodolfo Vieira finish?
Fucking dreams are made of that shit, isn't it?
I mean, the thing is, how dangerous I can't think of the fucking guy's name now. We fucking beat him. Hernandez. How dangerous did he look submission-wise from the beginning anyway? He looked...
Straight away, he jumped on the guillotine like real early on, didn't he? And Rodolfo had to like roll out of it. Mm-hmm. I went back and watched that earlier on, actually, after training. I watched it after training because I only watched the Burns fight, and then I've gone back and watched the prelims, and I watched that one earlier on, and like early on he had that like guillotine in and he had to roll out, and it was like, man, I don't know. But I think that's a classic example of a jiu-jitsu guy or a BJJ guy just saying, right, I'm just so good at BJJ, that's all I need to do and nothing else, you know.
And thinking that BJJ in a cage is the same. Like, it's not what you've got to think is when your first attempts at jiu-jitsu go wrong in the cage, like they did for Vieira, you're now worried about being punched, trying to scramble quickly, trying to resist, trying to stay on top, trying desperately not to lose that arm triangle.
I think it's too much haste on like keeping your kind of I don't know how the word for it, but just keeping that persona of just being the best jiu-jitsu guy in MMA. Do you know what I mean? And to do that, you got to submit to everyone that's put in front of you. Sometimes you got to make it a boring fight where you take him down and just dominate him. You know, sometimes you got to do it, you know, but I think he was that head up on like wanting to submit them, and then he blew out the gas, then he had to strike, then he had to wrestle, then he had to strike, then he had to wrestle. I think he was just done, like, and that elbow was insane.
To be that good at jiu-jitsu and to have the mount and the back so early and lose them against a dry fighter is, I mean, that's down to nothing but not nerves, shall we say, but just sheer overzealous. I want to keep these positions.
Composure.
Composure. That's the word.
Yeah.
Composure.
Yeah, it's definitely because he had the arm triangle a couple of times, the position there a couple of times, and that's probably Rodolfo's like signature kind of thing. Rodolfo finishes
Yeah.
everyone in those positions. No, he's still one of the best jiu-jitsu guys ever. You know what I mean? Rodolfo's insanely good, and it hasn't done him any favors getting submitted in an MMA fight against a purple belt. You know, and by all means, but but I think it'll do him good because he can go back now. He'll either come out next time and do the same thing, just try and wrestle and jiu-jitsu, or he'll come out and show some resilience on his feet. But how much at this late on in his career is he going to be able to learn on his feet? You
And
know
also,
what I mean?
Also, he hasn't really got the physique to go through big, grueling fights.
No, it's not ideal. This is why I think he rushes so early to get him down and get it over with, you know. But I don't know. I know it's not jiu-jitsu, and that's the difference. When you start putting punches in, you know, a black belt becomes a purple belt real quick. You know what I mean? Especially when you put punches in.
And so when you've got a purple belt who's not worried about being punched in the face, he can quickly become a black belt.
And we've seen that guillotine. It's like the Manson guillotine, isn't it? You know, it's the Jack Manson guillotine where he just gets to the back and just rips on. But
yeah, I mean,
he's a stud now, and he's going to go home, and everyone's going to love him.
Well, when you've got a guy who's got such a good anaconda, that's the natural guillotine to go to from there, right? Little arm drag, pass to the knee inside, sit into it, and also, if we're honest, I think Rodolfo was just glad it's over at that point.
Yeah, he was done. He was cut as well. He was done.
Yeah, that elbow was horrific. So yeah.
Yeah, it was a tough night for him, you know. But you know, it's like I said, it's either he'll come back and he'll start to show some promise on his feet, but then you set a blueprint out to beat someone like that. You know what I mean? You set a blueprint out to beat Rodolfo. I'm not saying that anyone else is going to submit to him, but you set that precedence of like survive the first round, put it on him on the feet, sprawl, put it on him, sprawl, put it on him until you find a way out.
I mean, he got a little bit lucky because in actuality, he could have just got his face punched in for the whole round. Like, to go to the back and get the old Dagestani handcuff and just sit there and grind and pound him, do you know what I mean? But the fact that Hernandez went for the submission helped him out a little bit. You didn't get your face punched in all night. But anybody else who's not going to be as reliant on a good guillotine would have just sat there and punched him in the face for the round.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. And, well, he probably would have TKO'd him, which would have been better in hindsight. Getting submitted by a purple belt isn't great. I'm not taking nothing from Rodolfo. I've seen and watched some of like the best. Him and Buchecha from the world's gi finals is insane. You know what I mean? So he's had some banging fights, which have been a pleasure to watch. So you take nothing away from a guy at all. It's an MMA fight at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's just one of those things where he is one of the best ever, but at a different sport. It is exactly that simple.
How many wrestlers that we've seen come into MMA and in the same thing get taken down and ground and pounded out? That's just as bad as a jiu-jitsu guy getting submitted. You know what I mean? For them in their own sport, you know. Yeah.
But it's like, so when I watched the Tony Ferguson fight, his last fight against Oliveira, and he couldn't mount escape, and I'm like, Ferguson's a black belt at jiu-jitsu. The first thing you learn when you come through my door, anybody, MMA class, jiu-jitsu class, and it used to be called the Olympians mount escape because it was the first thing we teach you is how to mount escape. Yeah. And I'm like, how can you not mount escape? And I understand, okay, Oliveira's one of the best in the world, but at the same time, you're one of the best in the world. You should be mount escaping, you know?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's fundamental. Obviously, when you're an MMA guy, something's going to give somewhere, you know what I mean? In terms of like an aspect of your game is not going to be good as some aspects of it. But like, you know, if you've got a guy who says they're jiu-jitsu black belt, then regardless of how much kind of coaching or training you have in that area leading up to that one particular fight, you should still know the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu. Yeah. You know what I mean? And escaping mount is one of the most fundamental things you can do.
What's the one place you never want to be in an MMA fight? Mounted, right? There's no... Yeah, so... But
it's just, like you said, MMA is so complex in terms of, like, you got to do so much. You got to go wrestling, boxing, kickboxing, Thai boxing or whatever. And then you've got your clinch work, wall work, then you've got your jiu-jitsu, and then, you know, it's so complex. But like you said, if they're a black belt, then fucking come on. Yeah,
In
you
the
shouldn't
first
know what
round
you
as well. Yeah, like in the first round of a fight.
do.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
There's certain things that we can be critical.
Like Eddie Bravo said, you just maybe have to Imanari roll everyone, you know?
I can't believe it's 2021 and we're at a point where one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world is telling one of the best jiu-jitsu players in the sport to Imanari roll.
Ah,
I mean,
I was like, come on, you know? I don't know. I heard his explanation for that as well, which I did kind of feel sorry for him on the Joe Rogan podcast, where he said that he was like losing a fight and he was like, man, fuck it, you got to try something, but maybe non-Imanari is the best thing to try, you know? Maybe stop getting punched in the face to start with and then work from there.
I mean, when you're getting beat up by a guy on the floor, not subbed, the guy's beating you up from top position, don't entice your fighter to end up on the bottom. Like, that would be my advice would be, he's fucking us up on the bottom, let's not be on the bottom. Let's go for an Imanari rule.
It is mad. It is mad. But like you said, you know, when you look at stuff like that and these, you know, elite guys in the world, sometimes you give yourself confidence and think, fucking hell, we're not that bad.
It makes me want to come out of retirement.
Yeah, we're doing all right.
Mate, listen, I'm going to let you shoot. We've been on here for an hour and 45 minutes, mate. It's been absolutely brilliant, like, catching up and chatting. You know, can't wait to get over and train with you guys when you're open, or if Mace gets another fight confirmed, give me a shout. I'll be over in a heartbeat to help you guys out.
That's awesome. Thank you very much, mate.
But other than that, mate, I'll get you on again soon. Like, as soon as there's another big UFC, mate, like, you're brilliant to chat to as like an analyst and stuff. You think really, the way you think about fights and fighters is really cool, but also you're funny as fuck, so it makes a good podcast. So I'll get you on again. But until then, mate, thank you very much for joining me.
Top man, thank you, mate.